Welcome to Guilty Pleasure Stories channel that we hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. My name is Isla Hudson. To this day, I still carry the weight of a secret that has haunted me for years. A secret that shattered my trust, my innocence, and even my relationships. This story is not easy to share, but it's one that needs to be told for me and for anyone who has ever been in a similar position. This isn't the kind of story you tell over coffee with a friend. It's not something you bring up casually in conversation. It's the kind of story that sits in the pit of your stomach, heavy and unrelenting. I've carried this secret for years, keeping it locked away like a box. I was too scared to open, but that box didn't disappear. It was always there, growing heavier with each passing day, and I've come to realize that carrying it alone hasn't protected me. It's only hurt me more. This story isn't just about me, though it's about trust, it's about family. It's about how one person's actions can ripple through the lives of so many others. And it's about the silence that follows the silence we convince ourselves will protect everyone, but ends up suffocating us instead. When I think back to who I was before all of this, I see someone different, someone lighter, more carefree. I was 19, just stepping into adulthood, full of hope and curiosity about the world, but all of that changed. I'm sharing this story not to relive the pain, but to free myself from it. To finally let go of the shame, the guilt, and the fear that have kept me silent for so long. And maybe, just maybe, this story will reach someone who needs to hear it, someone who feels alone the way I did. But before I go any further, I have a small request. Sharing this story isn't easy for me, but if you find it meaningful or think it could help someone, please give this video a like. If you want to hear more stories like mine, consider subscribing to this channel. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, please share it with them. Your support means more than you know, and it helps me continue sharing stories that matter. Thank you for being here with me. Now let me tell you my story. It all started when I was 19. My mom asked me to spend a few weeks with my Aunt Emma Michael. My mom trusted her completely and truthfully. I was excited. My Aunt Emma was like a second mother to me, warm, loving, and always full of laughter. She had this incredible way of making everyone around her feel special. I thought those weeks would be a chance to relax, to escape the monotony of home and the stress of figuring out what to do next in my life. You know, that weird time after high school where you're supposed to have it all figured out, but you really don't. That was me. So when my mom suggested the visit, it felt like a gift, a little escape. I remember that morning so vividly. My mom was leaning against the door frame, reminding me to pack enough socks and to call her every night. She thought this trip would be good for me, that it would give me the space I needed to clear my head. She had no idea that sending me there would change my life forever. Neither did I. I wish I had just stayed home. I wish I had listened to that small, quiet voice inside me that felt hesitant. But how do you explain hesitation when everything on the surface looks perfect? My mom said, "You'll love spending time with your Aunt Emma and the kids. They've missed you. And besides, it's been too long since you've had a real break." She smiled at me, completely unaware of the storm she was sending me into. When I arrived, everything seemed so normal. The kids ran up to hug me, screaming my name like I was a celebrity. Aunt Emma pulled me into one of her signature hugs, the kind that made you feel like the most important person in the world. For a moment, it felt like I'd stepped into a postcard, perfect family life. And then there was Uncle Edward. He was standing in the doorway, smiling in this way that felt odd, not outright wrong, but just off enough to make me notice. He was polite, almost too polite. He said, "Welcome, Isla. It's so good to see you again," but his eyes didn't quite match his words. I brushed it off. I mean, why wouldn't I? He was my uncle. He'd been in the family for years. He wasn't someone I'd ever thought twice about before. He was quiet, reserved, the kind of person who blended into the background at family gatherings. But that day something about him stood out, even if I couldn't put my finger on it. The first night felt normal. Aunt Emma made her famous lasagna. The kids were running around the house, and Uncle Edward sat at the head of the table, laughing at the chaos. It was loud and messy, but in a way that felt comforting. I told myself I was being paranoid about Edward, that whatever weird vibe I thought I picked up on was just in my head. Looking back, I wish I'd trusted my instincts. But at 19 you don't always know how to trust yourself, especially when you're surrounded by people you think you can trust. That first night I lay in bed feeling hopeful. I thought maybe this trip would be exactly what I needed. A break, a reset, a chance to feel like myself again. I had no idea what was waiting for me in that house. No idea how quickly everything would change. Sometimes the things we ignore are the things we need to pay attention to the most. The first couple of days at Aunt Emma's house were surprisingly nice. I hadn't spent much time with their family in years, and it felt good to reconnect. Aunt Emma was busy with errands and work, so I ended up spending most of my time with Uncle Edward and the kids. It wasn't weird, it didn't feel uncomfortable. In fact, it felt like the kind of family bonding I'd been missing. Edward was nothing like the quiet, awkward person I remembered from family gatherings. He was funny, attentive, and honestly kind of cool. I thought maybe I misjudged him. On the second day, we spent the whole afternoon playing video games. I'm terrible at them, but the kids loved it and Edward even jumped into play. It was nice, easy. For a moment, I forgot about all the little things that had felt off when I arrived. I remember thinking this is what family is supposed to feel like. Edward was so patient with the kids, helping them with their turns and cheering them on. I started to let my guard down, convincing myself that any weird vibes I'd felt were just in my head. I even started to feel a little guilty for how I'd been suspicious of him. He was so good with the kids, so relaxed and easygoing. He felt like the cool uncle you always wished. You had the one who wasn't afraid to joke around and have fun. By the end of the second day, I felt comfortable, safe. Even I had no reason to think otherwise. It was the fifth day when I noticed something strange. I was in the bathroom, fresh out of the shower, when I saw a shadow outside the frosted glass door. My heart skipped for a second. I remember thinking, is someone out there? But then before I could say anything, the door opened just a crack and it was Uncle Edward. He said he needed to grab something from the cabinet. I didn't know what to think. He didn't say much, just that he needed to grab something. He didn't look at me long, just a quick glance. Before he left the room, I told myself it was nothing, that it was normal for him to grab something from the bathroom. It was his house after all. Looking back, I realized how naive I was. I wanted to believe the best in him. I didn't want to think that there was anything inappropriate about it, so I pushed the thought away and decided not to bring it up. At the time, it didn't feel like a big deal, just an awkward moment, nothing more. The next day, everything seemed completely normal. Edward acted like nothing had happened, and honestly I convinced myself that nothing had. He was friendly, helpful, and as kind as ever. I kept telling myself it's all in your head. Isla, don't overthink it. And for a while I believed that, yet sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who seem the most harmless. By the third or fifth day, Uncle Edward started showing me around the property. It was innocent enough, or at least that's what I told myself. He seemed genuinely excited to tell me about the garden, the trees he'd planted, and even the old shed where he kept his tools. We went on walks through the neighborhood a few times too. Just the two of us. It felt normal. He asked me about school, my hobbies, and my plans for the future. I thought he was just trying to be nice, maybe fill the gap. While Aunt Emma was busy, I didn't see anything wrong with it then. But every time I went to the bathroom, I noticed the same thing. A shadow lingering outside the door. It was subtle, fleeting, but always there. At first I thought it was just coincidence. Maybe he needed something from the cabinet, or maybe it was one of the kids passing by. I convinced myself it didn't mean anything. Why would it? This was my uncle, my aunt's husband, someone I trusted. I tried to brush it off, but part of me couldn't ignore it. There was something unsettling about the way he moved around me, always finding an excuse to be nearby, always watching. But I told myself I was imagining things. It wasn't until that day, when Aunt Emma left the house with the kids, that everything changed. One afternoon Aunt Emma had errands to run and decided to take the kids along. She told me and Uncle Edward that they'd be back in a few hours. It seemed like any other day, nothing unusual. But as soon as the door closed behind them, the air in the house felt different, quieter, heavier. I was in the shower when I heard a knock at the bathroom door. My heart skipped a beat, but I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe he needed something like he had before. But then the door opened and there he was. He said, "Don't worry, it's just me. I needed to grab something." His voice was casual, almost too casual, but he didn't leave. He just stood there, staring at me, and then he started saying things no one should ever say to someone half their age. He told me I was beautiful, but not in a kind or fatherly way. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Then he asked me to try something new with him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man My uncle was standing there saying these things to me like it was normal, like it was okay. I froze. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to get out of that situation without making it worse. And then just as he started to move closer, we heard the front door slam. His youngest child had forgotten a toy and ran back into the house. That sound saved me. He left as quickly as he came, acting like nothing had happened. But for me, everything had changed. I felt violated, terrified, and completely alone. That moment shattered every bit of trust one had in him in that house, in everything I thought was safe. Some moments leave scars that can never fully heal. I didn't know what else to do. My mind was racing, replaying what had happened over and over. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell someone, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I packed my things. I told Aunt Emma I wasn't feeling well and needed to go home early. She didn't question me. She just hugged me, her concern genuine. I couldn't look her in the eyes. How could I? She had no idea what had happened, no idea what kind of man she was married to. As I stood there looking at their family photo, I felt this crushing weight in my ch**t. I kept asking myself, should I tell her? Should I ruin her entire life with the truth? But then I thought about the kids. I thought about how much they loved him, how much she loved him. It wasn't just about me anymore. It felt like the weight of their entire family was on my shoulders, and I wasn't strong enough to carry it. I told myself I was doing the right thing by staying quiet, that I was protecting Aunt Emma, protecting the kids, protecting their whole family. But the truth is I wasn't protecting anyone. I was just scared of the consequences, scared of what would happen if I told her, scared of not being believed. As I sat on that bus, I felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind, the part that believed in family, in safety, in trust. Everything felt different. Now tainted. I told myself I'd forget about it, that life would go back to normal once I was home, but it didn't. The memories followed me everywhere, no matter how hard I tried to push them away. For years I kept the secret to myself. I never told my mom, never told anyone. I buried it deep inside, convincing myself that silence was the only option. But silence has a way of eating at you. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't make the pain go away. It just grows heavier. With time, I thought I was protecting them by staying silent. But the truth is, I was just trying to protect myself from the shame, the fear, and the possibility that no one would believe me. Looking back, I realize how much that silence cost me. It cost me my peace of mind, my trust in others, and a piece of who I used to be. Some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. Silence doesn't heal, it only hides the pain. I never told my mom, not back then. I kept it all to myself, thinking I could handle it, thinking that staying silent was the right thing to do. But as the years passed, that silence became harder to bear. I started asking myself questions that I couldn't ignore. What if he's done this to someone else? What if he's still doing it? What if my silence allowed him to hurt someone in ways I can't even imagine? Looking at these pictures now, it's hard not to feel angry at him for what he did, angry at myself for not speaking up, and even angry at the situation for putting me in a position I never asked for. I've spent so many nights lying awake, wondering if staying quiet was the right choice. Maybe I was protecting my aunt. Maybe I was protecting her kids, but at what cost? Not. I still don't know if speaking up would have been the right thing to do. Would anyone have believed me? Would it have torn their family apart? Would it have done more harm than good? These are the questions that haunt me every day. I haven't told my mom to this day, and I've never confronted my aunt. Part of me still wonders if it's too late, if I miss my chance to stop something worse from happening. So I want to ask you, what do you think I should have done? Do you think I should have spoken up back then? Or do you think staying silent was the right choice? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, or made you think about something in your own life, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. Your support means more than you know, and it helps me continue sharing stories like this. Some choices stay with us forever. What would you have done? I don't know what the future holds. I still carry the weight of what happened, but I'm learning to let go of the guilt piece by piece. Sharing my story with you is the first step, a step toward healing, a step toward understanding. Maybe this story will help someone else find their voice. Maybe it will remind someone out there that they're not alone, if nothing else. I hope it opens up a conversation about trust, about boundaries, and about the courage it takes to confront the things that hurt us before I go. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. Sharing something this personal isn't easy, but knowing that you're here, listening means the world to me. If this story resonated with you in any way, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Your opinions matter. And I'd love to hear what you think about everything I've shared, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that matter. Stories that need to be told, and why story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks.